While loops are really good at repeating things for as long as some condition stays true, like while money spent is less than a certain amount, or while waiting for the time to reach a certain point. But sometimes we want to repeat things for a certain specific number of times. Imagine there was a warning that we wanted to display the message for exactly 10 times. Let's have a look at an example. Let's declare a function called raiseAlarm that would print out a certain number of warning messages based on the value of an input argument and return nothing. Hence, public void raiseAlarm, and it will accept the argument number of warnings, which is an integer because we were going to specify a specific number that we want to display. To stop after a specific number of repetitions, we need to keep track of every iteration the loop has successfully completed. To do that, we need to declare an integer variable just before the loop starts. Let's call it I for iteration, and we'll initialize it to 1. This is usually referred to as the loop counter. Then, we want to make sure our loop would only keep going as long as it's still less than or equal to the number of warnings. So, this would be our loop condition right here. This is basically saying that we want to repeat this instruction here, print line warning, for as long as I is still less than or equal to the number of warnings. The last thing we need to do is to keep track of the number of iterations that we've done. This is done by updating our loop counter I by adding 1 to it inside our loop. So each iteration, our I increases by 1. This statement here is called the loop increment. As a shorthand, however, this increment here can be written as I++, which means exactly the same thing. Simply increase I by 1, or add 1 to I. You could use either the shorthand version or the longhand version. It doesn't matter. They would do the exact same thing. However, as we're going to see later on, this shorthand makes our program a lot more readable. So, there we go. With these 3 important parts of our while loop, we managed to build a loop that would repeat something for a specific number of times. Let's trace it and see what's happening. Okay, let's assume we're going to call this function with a parameter value 5. Making our number of warnings variable equal to 5. First, we start by initializing our variable I to 1, and then we reach our loop where it starts comparing I to the number of warnings. Because number of warnings was passed in as 5, so it's comparing whether I is less than or equal to 5, which is true. Since it's true, we step inside our loop and we start executing the commands inside it. The first one is basically saying print line warning, so our output would have warning in it. The second statement is incrementing I, simply adding 1 to I and updating it, making our I value 2. Then we reach our end of our loop, so we go back up and we repeat that condition. We check if 2 is less than or equal to the number of warnings, which in that case is 5, so it's still true, meaning that we step inside the loop again and we print out the warning one more time. Again, we increment I, making it 1 more, and then we reach our end of our loop, go back up, do our comparison, and 3 is still less than or equal to 5, so we step back in and we print out the warning message. Increment I again, and go back and check our loop condition, which is still less than or equal to 5, so we step back into our loop, print 1 more time, increment I, making it 5, and then we step back to the top of our loop, comparing 5 to the number of warnings, which is still less than or equal to 5, because 5 is equal to 5, so that's true. We step into our loop, and then we print out warning again. And then we increment I, making it equal to 6. Go back up, do our check. Is 6 less than or equal to 5? No. This means we've reached this part, this condition is false, so we do not step into our loop, and we just exit. And that's the end of our function. So, if we call this function with a parameter 5, we see warning printed out 5 times.